Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
How are you all?
Very well, thank you.
Good. So, thank you everybody for joining us on this rather hot evening. So, I just want to remind everybody that the views that we express tonight are that of our own and not of our employees, or employers, should I say. So, how is everybody? How's your week been so far? Adam, Donna, Dawn?
Mine's been very hot, I've got to admit. I know everybody's absolutely thoroughly enjoying this sunshine, and it is nice to have sunshine, I'm not saying that, but I don't think it's nice for, well, lots of people who have to work in it, but I certainly feel extremely sorry for my staff. They make uniforms that kind of work just as well in summer as in winter, or should I say just as bad in summer as in winter. So yeah, and add a face mask on top of that, it don't make it the most comfortable job in the world. But yeah, we're all keeping smiling, all keeping well.
So we're quite lucky because we did away with uniforms a couple of years ago now. So when it comes around to summer months, it's like breathable clothes, and it's really beneficial to the team. So as much as it helps with creating that family atmosphere, it's also really good during the summer months as well, because you don't have to wear really heavy polyesters and awful stuff. So yeah, I need a break because I'm starting to dream about Matt Hancock and Chris Whitty, and I'm starting to go a little bit mad about all of this now. I took a little break from Twitter the past couple of days because, and I'm sure Dawn will attest to this in a second, this whole Matt Hancock thing is really driving me mad now. So, but I dreamt about him last night, and I dreamt that I was listening to line about PPP, and Boris just sniggered at him. And I woke up this morning, and I thought, you just need to not, Adam, you need a break. I'll let Dawn be my food.
Yeah, I found his comments in the week completely and utterly insulting. The fact that he claims that he didn't say that now, and it was a rhetorical plan, is absolutely insulting to everybody in social care, and not just care homes, everybody. And I was infuriated to the point as well where I couldn't read articles about it anymore because it just extenuated how angry I was. So, but on a good note, we made it summer. So we granted a wish for one of our ladies who told me that her wish, because she felt she was a clever clogs, were her words, were, okay, then my wish is you make it snow in summer. So we did.
Yay! How did you do it?
We bought a snow machine. Apparently, her mother used to say to her, "You are so grumpy that you come into winter." So she said, "Okay, Dawn, my wish is that you make it snow in summer." So we got a snow machine and called her outside, and she could not believe her eyes that there was snow everywhere. And the maintenance guys, bless them, just stood there snowing everybody, and the residents absolutely loved it. So we had a really good week, apart from Matt Hancock, but I haven't let that deter everything.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. And have you been on the road a lot, Mark?
Not too much actually. So yeah, and luckily my car's got aircon, so when I am out and about, yeah, I can cool off. Actually, it's probably cooler in my car than it is out and like in the house or out and about. So although I was listening to something on Talk Radio today, and they had people phoning in about masks and bits and pieces, and they were moaning about wearing masks in shops, and I thought, well, think about all the health and social care workers that have got to wear them day in, day out for 7-12-hour shifts at a time, if not longer. So.
And have been doing for over a year now, well over a year, well over a year. I don't think any of us, this time last year, none of us thought we'd still be doing it. And I mean, this week, my staff asked me, when do you think we'll stop? But there's absolutely no sign of it. I mean, it's not in the new PP guidance. It's not in the new care home guidance. And even Department of Health and Social Care have said, we've got to continue testing. We've got to continue wearing the PPE. So I just keep saying to my staff, I honestly don't know when it's going to be. I have absolutely no idea. But I think it's going to be a good while yet, definitely.
I'm going to be controversial. I don't think masks long term are going to be any benefit to our health. I think it's going to prevent us, for especially the younger generations, from building up any sort of immunity to anything. So can you imagine the day we all just rip our masks off and we get all these thousand viruses running through society? It's going to be horrendous. It's going to be absolutely horrendous. We need to try and get back to some sort of normality. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, how does that work in China? Because Chinese, they've been wearing masks for years, haven't they? It's just something that they do when they go outdoors.
Well, that's because they've got terrible pollution, though, isn't it? I think is they wear them in the big cities because of the pollution levels.
I think the thing that worries me is the material masks. The amount of people in their bags taken out and.
What'd you say, Dawn?
Yeah. I think we'll be wearing masks as long as they give us free PPE. I think I look at the date of March next year and think that's how long we'll be wearing masks for, because it's just this continuous cycle of offering PPE. So I think that's the plan in relation to PPE. I think they'll release something when we stop getting it free.
Yeah, I agree. It's certainly going to be a long time yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the other thing I saw this week, or I think I saw it yesterday, was the new report from the Health and Social Care Committee warning of the high risk of burnout for health and social care staff because of COVID. And for anybody that hasn't watched, we did a week on mental health and well-being. So if you haven't watched that, it's definitely worth having a watch and catching up. We were joined by 3 amazing guests who spoke about, signs and, bits and pieces that you can do to help manage your mental health, and making sure that you take time out. So, yeah, I think for me, that report kind of was a bit self-explanatory. I think we all knew that was going to be an end result for both social care and healthcare. But to have it in black and white, I think has, made it a bit more prominent for members of the public, which is good.
I mean, I've been quite lucky with burnout, but Dawn, that report must have, I don't know. I don't think it would have benefited you seeing it coming out now, has it? I mean, you've lived through it now, haven't you?
Yeah, I think when I read it, that wasn't anything that we kind of all didn't know. So it didn't proclaim any great extenuating circumstances as to where and when care staff or care managers or even health workers might incite burnout. I think most social care workers, from the research that I've done myself, because I've been doing research, was at Christmas, because there was that, we need to work, we need to ensure our services are safe, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to get on top of things. Then there was the second wave and the third wave. And I think that the burnout happened at Christmas from my understanding. And most people quit their jobs in social care in January. I think they had a break at Christmas. I think they had a break at Christmas, the run up to New Year, and that was when decisions were made. So I think burnout is kind of, as far as going back to November, December, I think it's really prominent that we need to look back on the whole of this pandemic and the whole of the last 18 months, rather than just concentrating on now.
Oh, you're on mute, Dawn.
Yeah, sorry. No, I think it's something they need to learn from. I think throughout the whole of health and social care, I think it's shown how stressful the job is. But I think I've got to include the NHS in that as well. Just absolutely anybody who works in health this year has just highlighted for absolutely everybody. It doesn't matter what grade of staff you are, where you work. If you've been on the front line of COVID, it has affected everybody in some way, shape or form mentally. And I'd like to think that moving forward, there will be more support with that. People will talk more openly about that. We all know it's something that we don't talk about. We'll happily say, oh, I've got a headache, but you won't say you've got a headache from stress and because you're not sleeping. You just go, I've got a headache. So, yeah, I'd like to think that moving forward that, there's definitely more support out there. It's a huge thing that people suffer with.
And I just want to give a huge shout out to all the supermarkets and shops out there as well, because Lord Almighty, putting up with us lot throughout the entire pandemic and people just piling through the doors because there's nowhere else to go. It's absolutely, it must have been horrendous. And we could actually buy PPE. There was times when we didn't because, someone in cabinet messed up. But the majority of the time, we've been able to have access to PPE. But imagine being in your supermarkets, not getting the free PPE, and not being able to access anything, and having to go to work every day. People piling through the doors.
Yeah.
You know, huge hats off to them as well. I think this burnout and the mental health struggles throughout COVID needs to be applied to all key workers, not just health or social. Anyone who's got up every single day throughout this pandemic and gone to work, you know, kudos to you.
Yeah, no, I second that, definitely. I know somebody who works in a B&M store, and I remember at the beginning, before they had the Perspex screens on the checkouts, that people, you know, he was just saying people were just coming through the checkouts, no face masks, no nothing, standing there only a foot away, and they had no protection at all. So yeah, I completely agree with you. It's just massive. It's everybody, isn't it? So
yeah. And on the subject of shout outs, it's obviously Carers Week this week. So a big shout out to all those unpaid carers that, you know, are doing a fantastic job out there looking after, you know, their loved ones. Yeah, no. And hats off to them because, yeah, during COVID, that must have been, you know, added pressure on what is already a very high pressure role.
Yeah.
And unpaid carers in Blackpool, Fleetwood, Cleves, Thornton. I know that's a very small niche where this chat show probably doesn't reach as many people as it does nationally. But we have just launched a Dare to Care initiative, which is aiming to provide a pathway into care for people who have had experience of providing care, whether you're young or old, unpaid carers, whether you just want to go in and volunteer or become a carer yourself. Dare to Care in the Blackpool area, you know, hit me up. I'll give you some information for it. But it's about giving volunteers the opportunity to put their skills to use now, and us recognising you that you are fantastic and we welcome you into our services to help provide that care.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So tonight we are joined by Raina Summerson from Aginare. So I'm really excited about this. So I will let Rayna introduce herself and the service, but I think for all of us, we obviously worked in care homes during the pandemic, so it's going to be great to get somebody's perspective of what life was like during the pandemic for domiciliary care. So, hello, good evening, Rayna.
Hello, lovely to be here.
Good evening.
You're all so bubbly all the time and energetic. It's lovely.
Well, for those three, it's the wine, I can assure you.
When I thought, should I stay in the office or go home? The pull of going home doing this was a glass of wine. And then I thought, oh, don't know if that'd be frowned upon. So I plumped for water.
Never frowned upon here. But I'm actually not on the plunk for like the second week in a row. I'm doing the chat show with the
Well done. Sorry, did you want me to introduce myself, Mark? Sorry,
yes, go ahead. Yes, please
already.
do.
So I'm Raina Summerson. I'm Group Chief Executive, Aginare. So we have 4 different holding kind of parent companies. So we've got one that does live-in care, domiciliary care, and a training company. And we have Care Home Group. And then we have a group that focuses on supported living and younger adults with physical and learning disability and kind of the complex care PMLD end, and daycare and respite services as well there, and outreach services. And then we have a support function where I'm sitting at the moment in a support function team which provide all of the kind of support functions across all of the operations. So HR, commercial, finance, payroll, facilities and things. So we've got a good range of services to compare and contrast for you.
Yes, no, and gosh, I'm thinking about, you know, it was hard enough keeping up to date with, you know, the ever-changing care home guidance, let alone having to keep up to date with all of those services and the guidance. Yeah, so hats off to somebody there.
Yeah, no, I think we had daily director briefings, and we kind of just every morning was just trying to recap. As we all know, usually on a Friday night, usually like 9 o'clock, 9:30. And that was one lesson that definitely didn't get learned and still isn't being learned. So yeah, a huge amount of effort. And then obviously fantastic team here. We've got, you know, great quality managers. She was often the one kind of disseminating, getting it out in a workable format, because that's the thing, isn't it? Not every, you know, our job and our priority was interpreting everything and making people in our teams, making their job as easy as possible every day, and just trying to take away those barriers, take away that confusion and uncertainty, and just give them clear direction every single day, but in kind of plain English. and making sure that they knew what our take was on it, because obviously a lot of the guidance, as we still know, is open to a lot of interpretation. So, yeah.
I mean, am I on mute still? No, I'm not, am I? Am I?
You're not?
No, we can hear you. We can hear you.
It's not live, is it? I'm not on mute.
I'm not on mute.
But for us, domiciliary, the most difficult thing was actually translating that to staff who weren't coming to a central base.
Yeah.
You know, no longer being able to come to an office and have a natter and give them some paperwork and some paper schedules to take out. And it was trying to get it in our heads and then translate it to our domiciliary team. And also trying to explain to our domiciliary team why they appear to be of lesser value to other care teams in the country, because they didn't get testing and they didn't get the PPE straight away, and they didn't get any of the benefits really that residential care got. You know, I mean, I still think to this day people aren't even being tested when they're sent home to the community. Yeah. So it was trying to reassure them and all of that. I don't know whether you had similar, Rayna, but it was definitely difficult for us, especially having two different services.
Yeah, I think we definitely, and I think for us, live-in care was different. Even extra care was different to, you know, the experiences, because I think people living in extra care schemes and our teams working in extra care schemes weren't sure whether they were being treated like care homes or home care, and so they got confused because they felt that they were a communal living, you know, environment, therefore they should be afforded the same kind of guidance and rights as in care homes. That just wasn't the case. So trying to get things again like testing there and get the kit into them was difficult. And I think for us, I suppose, I mean, I started out in care, direct care, when I was kind of 18, 19. So I, you know, never a day goes by when I don't remember what it's like to turn up at someone's door and not quite know what you're finding and have to answer questions, and, you know, all the training and all the support in the world can't prepare you for every eventuality, because, yeah, every interaction is different. And I often say about our teams, I think across our home care service, not our live-in, just our home care, we do probably in the region about 45,000 separate visits a week. And that's 45,000 separate interactions with humans. And that's not just two humans, that's often family or other professionals or pets, or, you know, you don't know what you're going to get. And it's a huge, you know, that's why we get so annoyed when people say unskilled or low skilled. I mean, how can you deal with all those variables every day and be deemed unskilled with people that are, from our perspective, because about 75-80% of our work is all with local authority or CCG. So we're dealing with people with higher acuity levels. You know, this isn't a nice to have lifestyle choice visit. This is usually people who've been assessed with the greatest needs. So supporting them and doing that well within the time given by the commissioner is, you know, such a huge job. And to do it then within a pandemic and with all that uncertainty you talk about is just phenomenal. So, yes.
Well, I mean, nice. Dawn, you've no experience of home care, with community care. So, you know, ask questions. What is it that you are most intrigued about or most interested about in home care?
Yeah, I definitely want to ask you. You just mentioned something there that I didn't know about, and it was a question I was going to ask. So it'd be nice if you could expand on it. For me as a care home manager, I have definitely employed in my years quite a lot of carers who have come from home care. And I can't deny that one of the main reasons that they say that they've come out of home care is because they can't get the job done in the time that they're allocated, because they're only allocated a half an hour or an hour, and they just feel that they can't get the job done. They can't rush an elderly person. And I will be honest, hand on heart, I've always said, why don't they just make them longer visits? Why on earth do they has to only be half an hour? Now, you just said there that trying to get it done in the time that the commissioners say. So are you actually saying, which I'm going to learn something new now, it's not particularly your choice?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So obviously, if you do private pay focused work, then you can negotiate directly with the person buying the care, and you can sort the time visit out. So then our professional advice would carry weight. They still don't have to, they still might want you to compress more into that visit than you think is possible, but obviously there's more negotiation. But with local authority and CCG work, no, it is very much shorter visits are very much more apparent now than years ago. So we would be given a programme of work. I mean, there are some places that aspire to outcome based. You might get a bundle of hours and you can have some freedom of negotiating with the person directly. But it is, even when they say they're operating like that, in reality, it is very much like, you know, half an hour in the morning, half an hour at lunchtime, half an hour in the evening. It is for these tasks to be completed. So the outcome might be there in writing and in some spirit, but actually it invariably does get reduced quite often to tasks. And with pressures increasing over the years on funding and budgets, people are only having their greatest needs met, and that does often mean they're very functional needs rather than more holistic and person-centered needs that you might aspire to. And I think it's a huge conflict for us, and I think in terms of recruitment, in terms of retention, in terms of job satisfaction and reward, you know, it's something over the years I've said way too many times, but I still believe it's true. At the end of the day, our teams have to shut the door on these people and walk down the garden path or down the steps away from their flat and leave someone that they know needs more care.
Yeah.
And that might be because there's not enough government funding. It might be because the local authority can't allocate it. It's all, you know, but it doesn't make it any easier for that person. And they have to take that emotional burden and walk away. And that's why so often they go over and above, because, you know, we're humans and we're in care because we care.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, I did it when I was a social worker assistant. You'd end up like doing stuff over and above for people that you shouldn't do, and you'd get slapped on the wrist if anyone found out, you would be insured and stuff. But, you know, it's like, you know, if you can like pop in someone's shopping on your way back past or something, and our, you know, care team members across the country are doing that every day. So, you know, most people will be doing over and above because they feel a moral obligation. And I think the trouble is with that, and with what we do as providers, because I think the vast majority of providers provide more than they get paid to do in a lot of different ways. And I think that a bit like we're saying about Unpaid Carers Week and that shout out for all the amazing work they do, we're all kind of propping up a system because we're all not letting it fail in order. And the dilemma is, because it's not completely failing, we don't get the reform that we need. And so you kind of get in the cycle. And I think our home care are absolutely underestimated in terms of how much in every community they hold the fabric of that community together. And we can go back. So just to clarify for you, Donna, we can go back and say we think somebody needs more time, and we can ask, and we can have a review, and we can provide evidence, but it doesn't mean they're going to get it. It really doesn't, because obviously there are, you know, finite resources for the local authorities, and equally they're in difficult position. And having been a social worker and a care manager historically, equally, I can only imagine that we've sucked a lot of the job satisfaction out of that role as well, because it's all the values you're taught when you're a social worker and all the stuff you do, and you're taught about holistic care and about enabling people and social care being positive. You know, you don't get the time to do, and probably half their time is spent reassessing people and reducing their package to try and fit in with funding.
So it all goes back to just how underfunded social care is. It all goes back to that. But it must be such a double-edged sword for you, because if they're wanting evidence that you're needing more time, you know, it's almost saying to your carers, and like you're saying, these are people who care, that after 30 minutes, you have to go. So if they say to you, can you just make my bed for me, please? Or can you just pop to the shops for me? You've got to kind of say no. But then I'm sure that, you know, I know carers who work out in the community, like I say, I've heard them say, I can't give the care I want to give. These are such caring people. And to, like you say, literally shut the door on someone, and that is what they're doing. So they're going to do these little extras, and it is in their own time. So, you know, how much of proper paid carers are then being unpaid carers because, they're popping on their own days because they're just, I think people in their own homes are even more vulnerable than people in care homes, because when that carer leaves, they are on their own. They might have a button around the neck that they can press. They might have a neighbour popping in. They might have a son or a daughter who come in. But ultimately, they are on their own, and that is such a vulnerable position. So that's so hard for carers to do. And I really, really think they, absolutely fantastic job that they do, because I couldn't bear leaving an elderly person on their own. I'd be like, sure you don't want a cup of tea? Sure you don't want to eat a sandwich? And have you got this? And have you got this? And, I just think the work they do is absolutely tremendous. But yeah, thank you for explaining that, because it sounds like it's a real minefield.
It is. And I think when we were chatting earlier, just before went live, I think it's to Adam's point about care homes. We've got a whole range of services, and what I always tell our teams is about choice. And unfortunately, it's not always about choice, because it's also about funding and money and people's ability to pay. But in terms of the services we offer, one service isn't for all, one care home isn't for all, etc. And I learned that very much again as a social worker, taking people around to different services, and what one loved, another one hated, and what I thought someone would like, they didn't like. It's such a personal thing. And I think, we read these things, 92% of people want to stay in their own home, and, you do a straw poll of people of mixed, ages, and, oh yeah, I definitely want to stay at home. But do you, if you're 85, if you haven't got a family nearby, if you haven't got any money, if you're getting half an hour visit, 3 times a day, or maybe only once a day, if your friends can't get to see you, and maybe, in the winter it gets dark at 3 o'clock and you're on your own then till the next day, and actually you feel quite vulnerable. So actually, that we know from our care homes, that people can have such a new lease of life and friendships and fun and laughter and life, and form really meaningful last stages of their life. And so I get really angry when people say one is better than the other, because I think maybe if you're in the optimum position of being able to not only pay for, but quite realistically now get the workforce you need, because even if you've got money, it doesn't mean you can find the carers to come in and give you the care and support you need. So it is about options, and I think the same for our workforce. Some people just find home care too much because it's a bit more lonely. Travel, obviously a big thing, lots of travel time, stress of parking, that's getting worse as we get more, so all sorts of variables.
Overall cost of driving nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Owning a car. We've got more young people coming who don't have, they haven't taken their driving test as an automatic thing. They haven't got the money to insure or buy a car because everything's so expensive. Or they live somewhere there's no parking, so they find owning a car difficult. All sorts of reasons.
On sad to look, we've had a worldwide pandemic where drivers' tests and stuff were cancelled for a huge period of time. And the actual guidance is people should be travelling on public transport and then providing care. So, for a lot of home care providers who have walkers or people who use public transport to get to and from, it must have been a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, to go to funding, there are options out there. And one of the most wonderful things is direct payments. And this is the amount of money you've got to pay for your care, and you can figure your care out however it meets your needs. Fantastic. However, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been a massive drop-off of people filling up direct payments throughout the last sort of 12 months. And I would hazard a guess that it's a lack of promotion of direct payments, potentially, than people actually taking up direct payments as an option. I've had a number of situations where someone has wanted to use direct payments to come to us, and the council have gone, no, you're not allowed to use them because they're not on our tendered provider list. And I've had to explain to these social workers, but no, direct payments is to enable them choice. They're allowed to choose who they want to do. But there's so much red tape around it. I think people actually get fed up trying to figure it out and go, I'll tell you what, find me a package yourself. But to dawn on it, direct payments are absolutely fantastic, little personal budgets. Rayna, have you experienced any problems in the sort of last 12, 24 months with people and direct payments?
Yeah, I think we have over the year. I think individual service funds the same, and direct payments. I think the theory, it's like so much in social care. The concept is great. The applications often complete pants. And it's, you know, we see across the country local authorities using direct payments, you know, capping them. So people might get a direct payment, they can hardly afford to buy an hour of standard domiciliary care with it, or, you know, so I think there are issues around the control, as you said, around control and red tape around the implementation of direct payments, which kind of is counterproductive to the concept of personal choice and, you know, enabling people to take control over their care and their funding allocation. Certainly seen a drop off. I think there was obviously all the pressure and targets that were in place, and then that's kind of dropped off with COVID. So I think there is a resurrection of that pressure now. But call me cynical, I'm not sure whether some of that is about absolving local authorities' responsibility and pushing more out. And I think what we find, again, it's hard because we deal with, probably as said, the higher acuity levels and kind of higher needs. But the people that we work with often have experienced quite chronic illness or periods of disability where they actually are tired of the system, they're tired of managing, and they're not maybe feeling fit and well enough to manage their indirect payment, even with the support. I say support because it's not always very supportive from what the resources are within, you know, local authorities. And, you know, I don't want a local authority bash because, as I said, I haven't worked, you know, I'm a kind of, that's where I did my grounding after my initial care work. But, you know, I learned a huge amount working for local authority and then central government, and everyone's, you know, affected by the funding cuts and the lack of social care reform across the social care sector, and doing a difficult job and having to make pretty unpalatable choices at times. So, you know, so I think direct payments is, yeah, be interesting to see where it goes over the next few months, but it's certainly not without problem. And to me, it's a bit like the registration of care workers. It's fine if it's genuine for the right reasons and it's properly managed and it's properly owned and it's properly implemented. If it's just done as a tick box, it doesn't work. So
I think for me, the sad thing with direct payments, especially when they don't give the right or the or even enough amount of money to the person, is that it then just means that as a provider, you can't pay your staff the wage you would want to pay.
Yeah,
it just reinforces that kind of, you know, that low pay, low skilled workforce, which, you know, they're not, like as you've said, they're not low skilled and they deserve a higher pay. And yeah, it just means that you can't honour that. And I think that's why a lot of, you know, domiciliary have moved into kind of the private market, because obviously you can charge a higher rate, you can, you know, pay your staff more, you can then value them a lot more. I'm not saying that you can't value them, but I think, you know, if you can pay them and incentivise them and reward them, you know, it goes a long way for the workforce.
Yeah, and I think, like we said earlier when we were talking with Donna about the length of visits, I think that's a big thing. And I mean, we've been quite strict on shorter visits, like 15-minute visits, but, you know, I mean, there's campaigning at the moment in Northern Ireland to stop, you know, 15-minute visits because they're just being so widely used. And I think it's that shrinking. You know, a few years ago, if we talked about, oh, we do X amount of hours per week, it would have been largely 45-minute visits or hour visits or longer. And now it's half an hour is by far the most common. 45 minutes, you know, we took quite a harsh stance on 15-minute, but, you know, again, if you're working for a private pay provider who some now do a minimum of 2-hour visits, so you might not need 2 hours, but you have to pay for 2 hours, and therefore those kind of things for workforce can make a real difference, and not feeling so rushed and having some quality time with people to get a nice bit out of it. Because I think across social care, as I said, I think we've stripped some of that job satisfaction of having time to talk, having time to really get to know people. We're going in later in life, so we're not maybe seeing the person as much as we used to build up to that time when they do maybe have memory loss or confusion or something that just makes, like we all are, irritable, and you don't know enough about that person because you're just going in for these really little snippets of time.
Yeah, so, and I think when I look back, you know, a few jobs ago when I was managing private domiciliary, we used to do a minimum of 4 hours for those that, you know, lived in very rural areas. It really allowed you to, get to know people and to really find out, you know, what their aspirations were and to spend time with them achieving them, you know, those goals that they had later in life. I remember I took one lady, you know, I took her skydiving. I think she was in her 80s, took somebody, you know, on an aeroplane ride in her 90s that she had never done. And it just allows you to do that. Whereas, yeah, I think sadly when you got a, you know, God forbid, a 15-minute, you can barely get your foot in the door without on the other way. So yeah, I mean, I definitely back that campaign. I don't think there should be any 15 minutes. I'd love to see, you know, a minimum of 45 minutes, you know, upwards personally for me. But
it can take some people 15 minutes to open the door virtually, but you know, we haven't even got on to minute by minute billing, Donna and Dawn. You'd be horrified.
I was just going to ask you, Rayna, because coming from, I've worked in the NHS and I've worked mainly in residential care. So we usually see our residents when they've gotten to that point where those within who have been in receipt of domiciliary or home care have to come to us because we run quite a complex dementia care home. What makes a really good service? So what makes a really good domiciliary home care service?
I think it's the people at the end of the day, you know, is that I think it's a really good question. It's really hard to quantify because, you know, you could say the optimum would be a private pay where they do minimum 2 hours, but it's not necessarily. And we get plenty of people coming to us and saying they've worked in those kind of services and they're not happy and they don't think the culture's right or the value's right. And I think, you know, having a team that cares, I think working for an organisation that cares, hopefully, but, you know, I'm not vain enough to think that what we do here permeates into impacts on our workforce. They don't really care about me. They care about their immediate team, same as people in receipt of home care care about the people that they have the immediate contact with. But it's nice to know that the organisation is professional. It might appease other people, but directly their relationship is with the person coming in and out of their home. So I think caring, working as a team, feeling supported, having training, having support, having people there who can pick the phone up, because as I said, you can so many scenarios that you just can't plan for, you can't train for. So I think knowing you've got a responsive team around you who can help make, you know, structure, so the guidance and the training and the guidance and the information that you get as a team member, I think all help drive a quality domiciliary care service. So I suppose, yeah, being realistic about some of the challenges in home care. But when I see our Weymouth team and Weymouth Important team, are a great example. It's one of our longest standing teams. We've got loads of people in there who have worked in the service for years. And you go in, you know, you can go in on Saturday and go in the evening, early in the morning. They're having a laugh. You know, they're like family. It's like a care, and they're like a small family. And they look out for each other. They muck in, whether they're in the office or out in the community. If someone's having a bad day, they bring them in for a cup of tea and a biscuit and take a round off them so that they can have a bit of, you know, it's that responsive caring, really. And because it is a stressful, demanding role. And if you don't have that around you, you're not going to be able to give your best to people who are in receipt of the visits that you do. So probably that team, and for us, and it's a really difficult area because I'll be honest, you know, recruitment and retention we know is challenging. Office coordinators and office teams are probably some of the hardest roles to retain because they're not so much the managers, but the kind of between, because they've got people coming at them from all different angles, they're juggling, they're doing rotas, it's demanding. But when you get that stability and you get that knitting of people working together, that's what makes a good, really good service.
And what about it? Because
I've got a big statement coming.
I have a friend that owns her own. She owns her own home care company, and
can't hear you, Dawn. Sorry.
Can't hear you either, Adam. You're on mute.
I'm on mute. Dawn has got a thunderstorm going on at the moment, so that was possibly. I'm trying to unmute. I can't unmute. Thorn has got a thunderstorm going on at the moment, so that might be affecting my quality, which is probably why we couldn't hear it then, unfortunately. But I think it was a great question, and going from what you were saying, Rayna, it does come down to listening, doesn't it? I mean, we tend to say to people, look, we offer a minimum of an hour care. Predominantly, we do half hours throughout the day. What I'd rather do is listen to someone and they go, this is the support that I need. And we would go, right, well, this is how much time you need to be able to do that. Because the amount of times where people go to us, I need help getting up in the morning, and I need my breakfast doing, and I need my medication doing, and I'll need a little bit of housework doing, but I only want half an hour. It just isn't possible. And it's about working and listening and trying to just communicate as best as you can, because then you get your happy clients and you get your happy staff, don't you? A happy workforce is a productive work.
Absolutely.
I'm so pleased as well you said about coordinating, because I think for me, being a coordinator was probably one of the hardest jobs I'd ever had. Managing the rotas, managing the staff, being their friend, but also, noons, make sure that, they were there at the right place at the right time. Yeah, hats off to any coordinator out there, because it's not a job that I would want to go back to anytime soon. But yeah.
No, and I think that's part of it. It's a bit like in the care homes, the seniors who, don't want to lead a shift or do medication or do supervisions because they don't want that extra pressure. And I think this is the thing, isn't it, with coordinators and field care supervisors and those kind of roles. Actually, people look at it and think, for a bit of extra money, I'd rather just do my care work and have someone else take that problem. It is a very, very demanding role, very skilled management role.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about equipment? I'm just obviously being a bit probably thick again here. Obviously in care homes, I think we probably take it for granted that we've got profile beds and hoists and stand aids and shower chairs and commodes, etc., 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 etc. And obviously when a room becomes vacated, the next person in that room has that equipment. So how does that work in the community? Because obviously if you've got to provide all that equipment in all these different homes, so where does it come from? And do you have lots of problem actually having the correct equipment out in the community?
We don't provide it, so it will be provided as part of the care package, but we have a duty to make sure that it's safe, and so it's maintained and it's there. And obviously if it says in the care plan and risk assessment or OT assessment that some equipment's needed, we have a duty to try and make sure our staff don't go in there and try and do care without it. So it is problematic. We don't actually have as many problems as you think we do. The community, but again, sometimes it's probably because people get on with it and find a way around it. There's what used to be familiarly known as joint home equipment stores, and people would go and get stuff on loan. And obviously, again, at the time we're being involved, a bit like you're saying, Dawn, with yours, people have often maybe been in and out of hospital and they've got to a stage where they've already got quite a lot of equipment in their house. So sometimes it might be actually ascertaining what is the relevant equipment for that time, because they might have stuff that worked for them a year or 2 or 5 years ago. But it's not as huge a problem. Normally the community OTs do a fabulous job, and again, an area that's under-resourced, and obviously in terms of people coming through into community physio and OTs, such an important role in the kind of primary care system for our teams. All those we rely a lot on community nurses, GPs, pharmacy is often forgotten, but such a huge medication management in home care is a really critical and demanding area and high risk area. So
I imagine space is a problem as well. I mean, again, care homes, purpose-built care homes, and then all of a sudden you're attending to somebody in a 2-bedroom terrace house, 2 up and 2 down, and you've got to try and work round a bed. That you must have to be extremely adaptive and sometimes think on your feet.
Absolutely, no, absolutely, and know when that is. When you kind of need to ring someone and say, I don't think I can do this safely, or I need support, or, and I think people sometimes they want to stay with their solvers, they're problem solvers, they're practical, they want to, they don't want to bother anyone, they think they should get on with it. So there's all sorts of issues around, that support and encouragement, and that fine line between not wanting people to ring up every 5 minutes and use their initiative and use their training, but make sure they do check in and ask or get extra support when it's needed.
And I think from my experience, anyone who is at home who potentially has full capacity and may struggle in other areas, become a bit of a MacGyver as they get older. And the contraptions I've seen in people's houses when I go, and it's like, so how do you get out of bed? Well, you pull this lever, and then I've got this and I lift myself up, and if I move this, the chair comes underneath me. And you sit there and you go, you should work for like the NHS, because this isn't me. This works fantastically. But there are now, obviously, OTs are recognising that home care is becoming a scarce commodity, and they are bringing out single-handed stand aids and equipment for single carers now, aren't they? So as much as it is fantastic, it's a sorry turn of events to realise that actually home care is getting that thin on the ground, that equipment's being made now to save money to just send one person out, which even still can be a bit of a danger.
Yeah, well, it's same with technology, isn't it? Digital transformation is great as long as it's for the genuine reasons of bringing benefit and enhancing, not just to replace people, which in home care is virtually impossible, and trying to make someone do something on their own that really you do need not just the physical, but possibly the emotional and moral support to share that piece of work with. So really loads of challenges, and falls are another thing that are very difficult at home for our care teams, in terms of often tensions with ambulance services, because again they're under pressure and they not supposed to be called on to help someone pick up off the floor if they're not injured, but it's so hard with some people to tell whether they're injured, and obviously you want to be better safe than sorry. So it all sounds very negative, but it's a lovely job. It's really rewarding, and there's some amazing stories and things done every day. But when you actually map it all out, it is a bit like against all odds. How amazing, I say that to our teams, how amazing is it, rather than focus on when things go wrong, how amazing is it that we do 45,000 separate visits a week, plus hundreds of live-in care people that we live with 24/7, plus 1,000 care home beds, plus all the other bits of daycare, and how much gets done right every day, and how much social care teams across the country get things right every day that enable people to live the life that they need to or want to, and hopefully optimize that life and bring joy so it's really annoying, isn't it, for all of us when that's diminished by these bad news stories and the coverage that's so negative. Why people don't want to come and work in social care. So
Dawn, you're back. You've not been struck by lightning, which is fantastic news. I know you've got a bit of a storm going on there. I think you were halfway through a question before you dropped off. Do you want to get it finished so we can?
Because it's really weird, because we've got lightning with blue sky. It's so bizarre. I was just asking, Rayna, I'm really sorry. My friend owns her own home care company, and she was saying that she really struggled with the subgrouping in the guidance. How did you cope with that?
Sorry, the subgrouping, did you say, Dawn?
Yeah, so she said there was workforce groups that had to be reinforced within the guidance during the pandemic. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's part of what we were talking about with things like the extra care schemes and the difference around, how are you working? I mean, I think we just did our best every day, same as in all the other guidance. It was literally trying to stand back and say, things like the PPE, about all the different types of care you might be giving in someone's home, and when you should wear it, when you shouldn't, what type of mask should you wear, and what was aerosol generating, what wasn't, as a procedure, and making a judgment about whether a catheter was going to spill over you or someone's going to cough in your face, or all of those things that just really, really challenged every day, trying to make sure that our teams use. So I suppose we always erred on the side of caution in terms of protection for our teams and for others. We had, particularly as a larger organisation, we did invest a lot in the PPE at the beginning, even before it was kind of coming through. So we did stock up. So I think we were always erring on the side of protecting as many people and trying to use, I suppose, a base, regardless of what the guidance says. And I think it's that confidence sometimes in what you felt was the right thing to do at that time. So yeah, incredible. Home care was incredibly different, and everything was lagging behind. You know, as Adam said at the beginning, it felt like, what about home care? You know, and it's an often cited fact. You know, people recognise care homes more. They're buildings, they're places, they're in our communities, a drive-by. Most people know someone who's been in a care home or see them on the news. Home care, people, it's so complex. Everything about it's complex. All the stuff we've discussed, the funding structure, the pay structure, the multitude of things it does every day. So people glaze over when you start trying to explain it, including ministers, including people in the Department of Health and Social Care. And people still, you know, struggle to get it. And I think home care was really left behind, and that did have huge implications. And then when the guidance did come out, even with people like UKHCA and Jane and Colin, you know, really banging on for the sector and for home care and the specifics around home care, they tried to influence the guidance and make it as clear as possible, but even they would get exasperated sometimes when it came out and like, actually, we know it's not right still, we know it's not clear enough, we know there's interpretation. So they did a fantastic job for the sector, I think, of taking the guidance and sending out the updates to say, this is what we think it means for home care. This is what the groupings mean. This is what the interpretation can be to try and help. But yeah, it's what did we get? Asymptomatic testing was like December or something ridiculous for home care. You know, such a lag. So.
I think one positive for home care compared to care homes throughout the pandemic, though, that I've seen is that they haven't had that negative media coverage that care homes have had. They seem to have kind of avoided that, and there's been a lot more positive stories that I've read, which is really good for, you know, that side of social care. Absolutely,
and live-ins kind of come into its fore. You know, a lot of people, more awareness of live-in care as an option, and I think both from professionals and from general public, and it being perceived as a safe option because it's kind of one-to-one care in your own home. And yeah, certainly care homes have taken, you know, the primary battering, and I suppose that's the trouble, isn't it? You're in the profile, but you know, equally, I think so the extra care schemes, which is domiciliary care provision, got forgotten, and there were certainly things that could have happened sooner there. But no, I think home care, as you say, did some great work stepping up to try and get people out of hospitals, try and stop people going into hospital, stepped in where other services had to retreat a bit, where families couldn't visit. And again, I think a lot of people did way over and above what they were paid to do.
I think it's great that you bring this up. I was in a meeting this morning, and Jonathan Freeman from Care Tech Foundation and Championing Social Care was there, and we brought up Care Home Open Week, which, by the way, week after next we are discussing on our chat show. And I brought it up with Lancashire County Council. Lancashire County Council brought it up with all of our providers. And the one thing, the majority of providers said was, what about home care? You know, can we not have something that celebrates home care? And Jonathan this morning, bless him, absolutely categorically said it's for everyone. You know, Care Home Open Week, yes, there's semantics with the words, but it is for everyone, and it's for everyone to celebrate all the amazing work that has been done. And like you were saying, Mark, you know, home care has provided some fantastic stories and some fantastic care throughout this pandemic. So week beginning, is it 28th of June, 29th of June? I forget. Care Home Open Week. Get on it, home care providers. You know, show the world what you've been doing, and really showcase your teams and do some public thanking. It's difficult for home care. We discussed it during marketing week. It's difficult for us to go and get photos and show people what we're doing, because can't just walk in like a care home, but think outside the box. And I think we should really celebrate home care as much as we can during Care Home Month.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Rayna, one question I've got, I'm conscious of time. If you had a magic wand, and I know this kind of puts you on the spot a bit, what would the future of domiciliary care look like to you?
Oh, I'm useless at these kind of questions. It's like when people say, what's your favourite, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, no.
If you could have a dinner date with any existing person, yeah.
I mean, I think it does sound is broken record, but I think it does, the profile of it, I think that it's how do we achieve better understanding, for me to have people understand what domiciliary care does, and then to be able to recognise what we're saying about our workforce. It would be the magic wand that I'd love, how do we, and I think that's messaging, and I don't know how involved you guys have been with like social care future movement, but this whole kind of actually how much is we as providers changing the narrative, and we talk about funding and we talk about reform, and we kind of get started and waiting for other people to do anything. And I think, I've got mixed feelings about it, because I think we do a lot to try and change, but it is quite hard when the whole system, there is a process there that you're trying to innovate and change from within. So I think, a magic wand would be everyone miraculously overnight knew what home care was and recognised what our workforce did in home care, and then placed the value on it and paid, we're willing to pay for home care as they are for blooming cleaners and ironers and nurseries and, all the other people that people rely on every day and recognise need, fair pay. And it's that.
Do you think it's going to take us to actually pull our fingers out the dam? Because the way I see home care is we've got this massive dam and there's leaks everywhere, and we all just walk up to it and we put our fingers in and go, "Don't worry, we'll put it up. We'll stop the leak coming through." And if we all just pulled our fingers out and let that water just flow and the dam crumble, something would have to be done, wouldn't it? But the reason we're in this and the reason we do care is we're too caring, and we'd never let that happen. Yeah. So do we stop plugging the hole and make the government actually stand to account now? Or do we continue being the best people that we possibly can be, not let people go without, and the government still take the Michael out of us? It's a very difficult predicament to be in.
National strike, is that what you're calling? A national care strike?
Oh gosh, no, I am not saying that. I will get crucified.
I've said that for years, though. Like train drivers go on strike, your post office go on strike, the NHS go on strike. Yeah. But I think I definitely wouldn't be able to if I was a care worker. Knowing that somebody needed you there and not turning up to that shift or not going into the care home to support somebody. And I think that's one reason why as much as we shout about the need for reform, there's no kind of backup from it, because we can't just all leave our day jobs for the day,
We prop it up, we keep it going. And also, we, as per Age UK kind of reports, 1.2 million, 1.4 million out there that we know of with unmet needs. And I think the people with the unmet needs are maybe, not in a position where they have a strong enough voice to represent what that means and what that means for society. And I think if you go back 20, 30 years, when I was in care, there were preventative services. And even when Aginare started, we used to do Meals on Wheels with a care check. Such an important service for all sorts of reasons. And all those services have been stripped away. And fundamentally, good social care does support community in a positive society, economically and, emotionally, physically, morally. And we're stripping all that away, and we're just creating this rod for our own backs. And we are part of that. And I often the only times when I ever think I don't want to be in social care anymore is when I feel I'm colluding with a system that is broken. But as you say, Mark, what's the alternative? I can do my best to do positive things in the role I have, and know that that's not helping everybody necessarily, the system, or I can do, or I can just walk away, or I can just sit and slate it.
I mean, even just stopping doing the above and beyond moments, you know, even just not going the extra mile, we'd all find difficult to do. I mean, it's funny to mention Age UK, that 1.4 million people. And that 1.4 million people are probably the MacGyvers out there who are creating their own contraptions to get by in day-to-day life. But Donna, we have only got, well, I think we're over time slightly, but it doesn't matter. Age UK. Why am I bringing Age UK up, Donna?
Because next week, which I think this follows on just brilliantly from this week, next week we have got the fantastic Caroline Abrahams from Age UK coming on to talk, and it is all about carers. It is literally, we are going to be celebrating carers and the amazing work they're doing, but we're also going to be talking about why carers are undervalued. And we've actually got a carer coming on from a care home who is actually going to talk very much from the grassroots, from her heart, on how she feels being a carer herself and how it felt during the pandemic. So I think that will bring a really, you know, true and raw feeling to what it actually is like to be a carer. So I think moving on from tonight, that is absolutely fantastic because we spoke so much about it. In fact, we speak so much about it week after week after week. So yes, we are celebrating everything carers and also talking about how they are undervalued and what we can possibly do to make that better. So yeah, really looking forward to next week.
Oh, brilliant.
It's like we're planning, but we're not clever enough to do that. We don't.
We're not.
No, it's that's brilliant. Caroline's brilliant, so that'll be a fantastic show.
Well, I mean, I will start by saying thank you so much for joining us tonight, Rayna. I mean, I've known you for a couple of years now through our John's campaign work, and I am itching for the days that we all get to meet back up in London again. And share all that outstanding practice. But thank you so much for joining us tonight to talk about one of the forgotten services out there, which obviously is home care. So thank you from me.
And thank you from us. No, thank you. And it's been lovely to meet Mark and Donna and Dawn virtually. And hopefully one day we'll meet in person. And but yeah, well, I'll wait to see about the co-hosting.
Yeah, no,
yeah, should have said that. Tell you.
July 8th.
Yeah. No, it'll be the July the 13th.
July the 13th. Me, Donna, and Rayna. No, Dawn and Rayna.
Donna's getting married. Even I know that happened. Come on. Thank you so much, everyone. Don't forget you can get you can subscribe if you can find the bell, which people say they can't do, but I watch YouTube and everyone else says the bell. It's, you know, like Mark says, it's somewhere around here. Hit the bell, you'll get subscribed, you'll get notified whenever we do a new episode. And join us next week when Caroline Abrams from Age UK joins us. So good night for now. Bye.
Good night.
See you later.